Happy New Year, everybody. It is Corbin Stuckey. I hope you had a fantastic 2025. I hope you were able to fulfill a lot of the New Year's resolutions that you made at the beginning of the year. And if not, I hope you learned a little bit about yourself throughout this year and you're able to incorporate that into 2026. This New Year's Eve was actually pretty great for me and Lisa because we decided to do something a little bit different this year. We decided to go to the Regal at the Mall of Georgia to watch the series finale to Stranger Things. Stranger Things is probably our favorite show as a couple. I love Stranger Things, but for me personally, it's always a back and forth between that and Breaking Bad. They're just two amazing shows. I can't recommend them enough to people whenever I tell them what my favorite television shows are. But in terms of Stranger Things, for me, it always reached me at a personal level because I had watched this show throughout the years that it came out. For Breaking Bad, I binge watched it when it ended and I loved it. But for Stranger Things, I was watching it in real time, where I was able to watch the first season when it came out in 2016. I was able to watch the second season while I was in film school. And us as film students were able to have conversations about this amazing show on Netflix with this 80s vibe. So that was really cool experiencing that while I was going to Full Sail. And it always just seemed like there was a season of Stranger Things that was coming out during a pivotal moment of my life. College, post-college, career. And now I was able to watch the series finale with my fiance. And yes, I know I haven't really mentioned this yet on the channel. Lisa and I are engaged. We're actually planning our wedding for near the end of the year. We're really excited. I proposed to her back in October, and this is just a really fun way to end the year where we were able to celebrate as a newly engaged couple and we were watching Stranger Things. Stranger Things has always just been such a watchable show to me. I don't know what it is. I think it's mainly just because of how it's approached and the characters that are involved. And, you know, there's also that bit of nostalgia with it. You know, everyone loves that 80s Amblin kind of style where we feel like we're watching the Goonies, and seeing something that was kind of catered to an audience in 2016. It was just very interesting kind of going back to that kind of style that felt like we were losing around the time, but then we were kind of pivoting back into this kind of nostalgic realm. And for some properties, it didn't necessarily work. It worked at first for like, you know, the first set of movies, but sequels after that kind of like started going stale. But with Stranger Things, it relied not necessarily fully on nostalgia and 80s pop, but it mainly heavily relied on the characters of that time period. I've been kind of thinking about this since like the premiere of season 5. We haven't really experienced anything like this in a long time, where we see these young actors, these children, growing up to be these older versions of themselves. Like, we haven't really experienced that since, like, I would argue Harry Potter. So it was really interesting kind of to see that, and just very fun seeing where the characters are now that they're young adults in high school. I will say though, I don't think season 5 is my favorite. Not to say that it's not good. There are a couple things about season 5 that I could go without, but I understand what they were going for in terms of the finality of these characters and the friction that they were trying to cause with each given character. In this household, Lisa and I have kind of agreed that season 3 is probably our favorite. It's the season where the kids are finally able to be kids. There is the acknowledgement of what happened to them in the prior seasons, but season 3 is just fun. You know, Eleven's there, Will is finally getting back into normality, and we're able to kind of see them just be kids for once and not deal with all this strange stuff that is happening. And then after that setup, then it turns into like the Stranger Things that we know today, where there's kind of a mystery and it becomes kind of a horror film almost. So Stranger Things 3 is probably our favorite. Season 4 is really, really good as well. That's when they started doing these over-hour episodes, the finale being 2 hours. And I liked season 4, but like, I really like these characters interacting, and it kind of just felt like we were watching separate stories unfold. We had characters in Hawkins trying to figure out who Vecna was, which by the way is the pro of season 4. Vecna is amazing. Such a great modern slasher monster character. Then we had Will and Mike and Jonathan in California, and then we had Joyce trying to save Hopper in Russia. It kind of just seemed like it was going for like this Avengers Infinity War kind of thing, where all the characters were around like different spectrums of this universe and they were doing their own thing, and it was trying to collide, but often at times it didn't feel like the stories were very cohesive with one another. So season 4 is great. I just preferred like it being focused on the Vecna story, but when we were going back and forth with the characters, it just kind of like took me out of the show sometimes. Season 5 again is not really my favorite. It's still a very good show though. I think my main thing with season 5 is that we have these characters now that are clearly adults. Yes, they're technically still in high school, but it's a coming of age story of these characters who are figuring out who they are as people. and we still have the adults telling them like, hey, you can't do this, I can't lose you. And there's always like this friction with the characters where we have two sets of characters arguing because they don't want to lose one another. And that's what makes the show great, is the love that the characters have for one another. But it does kind of get old when we constantly have Joyce saying to Will like, hey, I can't lose you again, like in season 1. And very similar to where we have Hopper, who has looked to Elle as a daughter figure, and he doesn't want to lose her either. We also have a little bit of friction with Dustin and Steve, who are not getting along because Dustin is still dealing with the loss of Eddie from season 4, which I understand what they're going for with each of these character dynamics. They want to create friction. They want to give us a reason as to like, hey, we want to see these characters make up or gain an understanding of one another so they can beat Vecna. I understand that. I will say, once we're past those first set of episodes and we finally get to the mid-season finale where Will is tapping into the hive mind and he recognizes that he has powers, it's such a powerful scene. I love like the flashbacks, the Super 8 footage of him meeting Mike for the first time and recognizing that he has people around him that love him, and he's able to tap into that and destroy all the Demogorgons around the vicinity. It's such a cool scene. I think that's probably my favorite portion of everything involved with season 5, is scenes like that where the characters are able to surpass their insecurities and they're able to stop these monsters around them. It's such great buildup, and it's so fulfilling within these characters. And again, that's what this show is about. It's about these characters and the story moving forward. And there is a lot, obviously, that you can nitpick within this show. For instance, Max, who has been trying to escape this Vecna realm for such a long time, and she hasn't really been able to do that because she keeps stalling. She keeps hesitating when a portal opens up, and then she has to start back at square one. Or when she's talking to Holly and she's trying to tell her to believe in herself, when obviously she should be running towards this portal. There's obviously going to be stuff like that where viewers are going to mention that online, understandably. And also, you're going to have hardcore viewers who have watched this series throughout multiple times who are going to point out retcons. There is a discovery by Dustin in this show that the Upside Down is not an alternate reality. It's actually just like a tunnel that you go through to reach another separate reality. So it's just an in-between, which I thought it was really cool. Just from the perspective of watching the 5th season and that revelation, like, oh, that's like really interesting. In terms of like, if there's stuff in the past that contradicts that, I have no idea. I know that there was some conversation of like Will being like within this hive mind since the beginning of the 1st season, and people pointing out stuff where we see Vecna in the 1st episode of season 5. Apparently he's been there the whole time and he was the one interacting with Will in the Upside Down. I don't know. From the perspective of learning this information for the first time while watching the 5th season, it didn't bother me. I thought it was actually really inviting. The main stuff that really bothers me is like in the 1st season, where when you went into the Upside Down, there were people like Joyce and Hopper who had to wear like hazmat suits because they were like concerned about the pores in the air. And then all of a sudden you have the characters walking around in the 4th and 5th season like it's absolutely nothing, and it's just like another world. And we have throwaway lines from Robin's girlfriend saying, is this stuff safe to breathe? And she's like, I don't know. Whatever, yes, you can nitpick a show to the point where everything logical is out the window. I'm just more concerned of how the show makes me feel. Are they respectful towards the characters that we've known since the 1st season? And that is where we're gonna get into the series finale. And I wanna talk about the experience that I had with Lisa while seeing this on New Year's Eve. Again, we actually went to the Regal at the Mall of Georgia to watch this at the theaters. And it was so surreal because we've been watching Stranger Things this whole time for the past 9 years from the perspective of our living rooms. And seeing it now at a movie theater was just incredibly fulfilling. I would say that this is very, very similar to that of like Avengers Endgame and Spider-Man No Way Home. It was just really cool, just kind of like hearing audience reactions and just applause. And Lisa had apparently never experienced anything like that. I was like, hey, this is like really cool. We gotta like find like your thing to like maybe apply this kind of tone to. So it was just really cool sharing that experience with her. And now she knows what it felt like when I saw Endgame and No Way Home, and like that dopamine. It was just really, really cool. And pushing the experience aside, the finale itself. This is one of the best, I think, series finales ever. It feels like every given character has something to do. There's callbacks to like season 1, and it feels like what Mission Impossible 8 was trying to do this year, where the movie was just so filled with flashbacks that I couldn't really even enjoy the movie within itself. And that's coming from someone who states that Mission Impossible is their favorite film franchise. Yeah, I love Mission Impossible, and when I saw that 8th movie this year, I it wasn't my favorite. But I feel like Stranger Things was able to apply that same concept because we've grown with these characters, and there's just something more fulfilling with these character dynamics and these friendships that are built throughout the series, that it just works. Like when Steve almost died, that was like something that everybody was like really hoping was not gonna happen. And then when we see that not only is Steve saved, it's Jonathan that saves him, the character that's been bickering with him throughout this entire series, it's just incredibly heartwarming, and it's really, really good writing. This series also has like a really good track record of introducing new characters that are just fan favorites within that season. Delightful Derek. I just love him. He's like a little live action Cartman, but instead you learn to love him throughout the season, and you recognize that he's just a kid and he just needs like positive people around him. I thought that was just a really beautiful message. And when he saves Holly from Vecna in the cave and he says, "Suck my fat one," I was like, let's go, Derek. I also thought it was very interesting, and I'll admit a little divisive, when they brought back Kali, 8 from season 2, 11's sister, because this again creates another kind of piece of friction throughout the story, where it's like Kali has kind of accepted like her and 11 are never going to be safe and they're always going to be on the run. So there's this conversation where she states like, hey, we should sacrifice ourselves when this is all over within this upside down realm. And then Hopper figures this out, and he decides to have a conversation with Elle about the importance of her being able to survive and live her life. I'm gonna get like really personal for a second in this video, but like there was something that was going on with me a couple weeks ago where I was like really, really struggling. It was work related. I was scared about finances. And on top of that, we're planning a wedding for next year. And I was confiding with my dad about all of this. And he was listening to what I was going throughout the last like month or so. And he was like, hey, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna work out, because it has to. You will get out of this situation that you're in, and you're gonna make this work. And when I'm seeing this scene in the movie theater with Hopper talking to Elle, stating, hey, you've gone through so much in your life and you lost your childhood, you need to be able to have a life of your own, because it needs to work out, it needs to happen. It just resonated with me, because that was the same exact conversation that I had with my dad like 2 weeks ago. And I just started bawling in the movie theater. It's one of the most impactful scenes within the finale, and I absolutely loved it. Also, we finally get to see a physical manifestation of the Mind Flayer, and this thing is really fucking cool. Stranger Things has always had like this niche of upping the monsters every season. In the first season, we had the Demogorgon, and apparently after that, the Duffer Brothers just explained like, oh yeah, that was just like the equivalent of like a shark within this upside down. There's more things out there. And ever since then, we've had more and more monsters come into play, like, you know, the Mind Flayer, but it being like a smoky manifestation. And in season 3, we've had it as like a slime manifestation. In season 4, we've had just like Vecna as like this monster slasher. And then finally we get to see like this physical manifestation, and it's just so cool. And one of my favorite scenes is when the camera just pans down and we see that Elle has made it into this new dimension, and she's taking on Vecna within this monster, and everyone around this monster, which by the way, we'll get into that because there's some cons here. Everyone around this monster decides to use their weapons to take it down, and it's like everybody coming together. The only problem that I have with this scene is they devised this plan on the spot where they decide to get up on these cliffs and take it out from these different perspectives. And it's like, how did they climb up these mountaintops? Like, within that amount of time. That's the most unrealistic part within that series finale. It's really, really cool. And I'm willing to push that aside because, like, you know, it's just so fulfilling from a character perspective of everybody coming together to stop this Mind Flayer. But it does not make sense how everybody was able to climb these mountaintops within that amount of time to stop this monster. I also loved Will using his hive mind powers one last time to stop Vecna from killing Elle. I thought that was like really, really fulfilling, and just saying like, I'm not scared of you anymore. Again, like, these things alone that the characters are doing are so well done, but when we have the context of these characters' backgrounds that are also in play, it just really boosts the scenes. Speaking of which, we have Joyce, who is facing Vecna, the cause of her son's suffering throughout this entire series, and she just takes an axe and starts beheading this guy. And through every given swing, we see all of the trauma that each of the characters in that room have gone through. And it's just a perfect way of how you utilize flashback sequences. Again, I wish Mission Impossible 8 recognized that, but they really didn't need to use flashback scenes in Mission Impossible 8, but like within the finale of Stranger Things, it works incredibly well. I loved it. And of course, we have the controversial scene that everybody is talking about. Did 11 die, or did she survive this? From a first glance perspective, it kind of seems that she has sacrificed herself within the Upside Down, like her and Kali had discussed. And it was so to keep her friends and family safe from the government, so they wouldn't be hunted down anymore because of her. Skip to 18 months later, we see that everyone is trying to move on. They're all graduating high school. It's a really fulfilling scene where we see Dustin paying tribute to Eddie, which that was heartbreaking as well. But during this graduation, Mike has this realization because of the frequency from the speakers that the sound weapons that the government were using were present that night. So how was Elle able to use her powers? And it's through this last D&D session that the kids have after their graduation that they all speculate that Elle might have survived that night. And it's stated that this is merely a theory. They don't know for sure that she survived. I, for one, would like to think that Elle did in fact survive. There's a lot of things that point to this. Number one, when she's using her mind powers to talk to Mike in her void, we see that her nose isn't bleeding. So it's like, oh, that's really interesting. And then if we look at both of her wrists, we don't actually see the 11 tattoo that she has had throughout the entire series. We also see a scene of 11 on a hilltop where she is finally able to go to the location that Mike mentioned earlier, this happily ever after concept of them going to this place where there are these 3 waterfalls, and she seems to have found a place equivalent to that. But the question is this an actual scene that's happening in real time, or is this just like all the characters thinking about this concept and this is all in their heads? I would like to think that this is an actual real scene taking place, because if you think about it, there's never really been any scenes in the past that are within the realm of Daydream. So we have to assume that this is a scene that is just happening through like B-roll with all the characters talking about this concept. And if you think about it, every given story throughout Stranger Things has been foreshadowed through the D&D campaigns that the kids have been playing. So if they're telling a story throughout their last D&D about this mage who saved them all, we have to assume if 11 is the mage, then 11 is still out there. It's kind of like a modern day Inception, where it's like we have these given pieces, which ending do we lean forward on? And for me, because I like positive endings, I would like to assume that 11 is still out there. That being said, I like how Mike has the closure, but I would have liked it to where Hopper had a little bit of closure or some hope that she is still out there. I do like how Hopper has a new family now with Joyce. I love the proposal scene. That's great. I just felt like all of these endings, for the most part, were very fulfilling. And you could just feel the love and emotion throughout the movie theater. I am very happy that we watched Stranger Things at the movie theaters. I can't imagine experiencing this like from a different perspective. I know there are people who love watching their content at home, and that's totally fine. But I'm happy that we were able to experience this with fans who love this series. I'm happy that we were able to feel the room. I'm happy that like my fiance was able to share the same emotions that I did when I watched like, you know, Endgame and No Way Home. And she was able to finally understand like why we go to the movie theaters and just fandom overall. It was just a very magical experience, and I'm really happy that like we were able to experience that at the movie theaters. It was something that we had talked about, like I think in beginning of November, like we have to get these tickets, and the fact that we got them in like really good seats. It was just such a perfect way to end the new year. And even though Stranger Things is gone, I'm looking forward to this year. I'm looking forward to getting married. And yeah, maybe we'll just spend the next year. Maybe I'll introduce her to Breaking Bad. We just watched Pluribus. I think that's how it's pronounced. We just watched that. So now that like we just finished watching that, maybe I'll introduce her to Breaking Bad. But yeah, guys, this was my thoughts on Stranger Things. The finale was great. I'm really going to miss this show. I'm really happy where they left everything. I'm wondering if there's going to be more spinoffs. There's like a cartoon happening like in the next like few months or so. It takes place between the events of season 2 and season 3. That's great. In terms of like the show itself, like, yeah, I mean, yes, I'm a fan. I'm going to be very inviting of like them bringing this show back to some given capacity, whether it be like a spinoff or whatever. But if they decide to end it here, that's totally fine. This was, I think, one of the best season finales ever. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of Stranger Things. If you've seen it yet, let me know if you saw it in the movie theaters, what your experience was like. Like this video, share it, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet for more movie news, television shows, gaming content, and so on, and just things pop culture oriented. I'm looking forward to this year. I'm looking forward to making more content. And yeah, please subscribe to my channel for more videos. Thank you guys so much. I'm Corbin Stuckey, and thank you for watching.